if you find yourself saying things like, they don't get it, if only they would change, they don't understand Agile, this episode is for you. And you're going to want to listen till the end because that's where we're going to give you 3 actionable tips to use, if that sounds like you. So there's this popular phrase making its way around the internet right now. We can't even really figure out who originally said it, but it goes something like, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. Christian, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm glad we're doing this because I've heard that before and maybe even used it before. And in the context that I hear that, it means leave. You can change your ship, right? You can't change your ship, then change your ship. And I'm saying ship, by the way. The hard part about that is, there's tough times. And if you've got to feed your family, nobody's going to fault you for not changing that. And so I'm happy to hear that we're going to talk about some things you can do, because I'm pretty sure there's some people out there that are struggling, feel like they're banging their heads against the wall, feel like they're in impossible situations.
Yeah, you can change the people around you if you do leave. So that might work in a social situation. That might work in some toxic relationships, toxic friendships. I've even heard in some families, Christian, that estrangement can be a wonderful thing. But in your job, you're right. Times are kind of tough right now. And if somebody needs their job, well, easier said than done to just leave and get a new one. So why is this relevant? Why is this relevant to our Scrum Master crowd? If they find themselves saying, well, they need to change, they don't get it, they're not doing Scrum right. I'm not trying to pick on the Scrum Masters listening. And there are some who've lost their jobs. There's some companies who have just across the board eliminated the Scrum Master job. Well, shame on all of us for not showing the value, showing the worth of a Scrum Master. And in some of those instances, it might have been the right thing to do. If Scrum Masters have gotten so entrenched and commiserating with people saying those things, they don't get it, they need to change. Well, that mentally reinforces that there's nothing they can do about it. And that's so not true.
Even giving up, right?
Right.
You try to pick battles and you're like, I've tried that. It just isn't going to work here. So I'm just going to go along with what we've always done. It's understandable. It's easy, but this is not always easy.
Every knowledgeable Scrum Master knows you cannot change another human being. Who's the only person you can change?
Yourself.
That's right. Because when you push on people, the natural response is to push back. It's visceral. And if you keep judging, if you keep harping on people, they're just going to keep resisting. So in some contexts, I would say, Scrum Masters, we can do better. What are you doing in the situation to help? So let's give people some actionable things to try. And we are going to start with, start being helpful. Stop blaming and judging. And I know you're laughing.
Come on, it's easier. It's easier.
It's so easy to say and hard to do. Christian and I did the exact same thing, didn't we?
We all, yeah. When you start off, we can fall prey to wanting to do it so right and being correct that we can get really prescriptive in how we approach this thing versus with time, with maturity, backing away from that recipe card and starting to pull more from the cookbook, if you will.
My Myers-Briggs, and I know some people don't like to talk about Myers-Briggs, but my Myers-Briggs is ENTJ, and the J stands for judgmental. So let's be honest. We all have an amygdala. We all have an ego. We all have that little voice that's going to be judging. That's not agile. That's not right. Blah, blah, blah. Totally get it. And when I was a new Scrum Master and did those kinds of things, people resisted. People pushed back. And then I just got more and more judgy. It was only when I stopped doing that I started to see real results. Oh, dummy, you've got to start with you. You've got to change your approach, which means you've got to start helping.
Yeah. I same thing. You go to class, you get training, and there's dots that connect in training because you're thinking back at where you work and you're hearing about the intent of this thing and what this thing was meant to do. And you're like, that's what we need to do. Then you go back and then you like try to have people do what you learned in class, but then they resist because they weren't in that class with you. And so it's just the more you push, the more they're going to push back. And then you start to say they don't care. We start making assumptions, but they weren't in the class with you. They didn't make that connection. So how do we bring that back, and how do we get them to see what they're doing to themselves? So maybe if they can see that, they might make some changes.
So we don't start with, hey, we're doing it all wrong. Oh, look who knows so much coming back from training class, right?
Doing it wrong. Most helpful words out of your mouth.
Let's do a really tangible example. Let's give people a really tangible example. So let's say that we'll use the scrummy words first, right? So let's say that there's a sprint and we're not meeting our goals and objectives. We're not meeting our sprint goal because what happens is we get interrupted by somebody, fill in the blank, leader, manager, whatever, right? Hot new thing. And for some reason, the expectation is do it all and do this hot new thing. So then you hear things like, we've got carryover from sprint to sprint. And what does our Scrum Master say? They say something unhelpful like, we're doing it wrong. That's not Scrum. The reality, this is the harsh reality, Scrum Masters, the minute that interruption, whatever it is, happens, what should a Scrum Master understand?
Inspect and adapt.
Transparency, inspect, and adapt. Empiricism. It is Scrum's foundation. So the minute that interruption happens, who should that interruption go to?
Product owner.
Product owner. They're the boss, applesauce. It's got to go to the product owner. And now let's look at all the choices a product owner could make. What's one thing a product owner could do?
They could say no.
They could say no.
If it's a truly hot thing and it has to, we have to use common sense. And it could be we do it and maybe ask the team what else can come off.
Right? We take something off, adapt.
Or if it's urgent and it's going to take up all the rest of the time of the sprint, that's a terminate.
Terminate the sprint. Product owner could terminate the sprint. So when I hear the carryover stuff and I hear stuff's getting piled on the sprint, leaders are pulling the whoa. Well, what are you doing in the situation to help, Scrum Master? Why aren't we adapting? Why aren't we adapting, pivoting, being agile? So if we have a Scrum Master who has lost their objectivity and they've lost sight of even the basics and they fall prey to that judging, it's just a negative reinforcing loop.
Yep.
It's just going to keep spinning out of control. So hopefully that's useful. The second tip we have, and it's going to sound overly simplistic, and it is, is to listen. Really listen.
What does that mean?
It's hard to listen when you're talking. And so Scrum Masters have to be listening not only with their ears, they have to be listening with their eyes, for nonverbals, what's not being said, as well as what's being said. When you actually start listening, the thing that was an aha moment for me is all the assumptions people are making, right? And if they go untested or unvalidated or unverified, it causes even more communication problems.
Yeah, how do you know for sure? You're right. When you can calm that internal monologue down and you just calm down and listen, right? Don't worry about having answers. Just listen. That's when you start to go, okay, is it really happening? How do you know that's happening? Have you talked directly with this person? Have you measured it? How do we know?
You're going to come up with those better questions. And a really tangible example you and I hear in every single training class, every single coaching situation is what I call tool speak. The minute I hear feature, epic, story, task, I'm like, oh my God, they're using Jira.
Yeah.
I just know because I've heard it 1,001 times. And then we spend all this time having them unlearn, but they say things to us like, We have to. So let's take your question. Do we know that for sure?
Yeah.
Did a Scrum Master ask that question?
Good question to ask.
Well, no, but we just do. Well, how do you know? Well, this is the way Jira was installed.
Can you configure it? Right?
We know.
Are we
You and
giving-
I know that they can configure it.
They can configure. Are they allowing you to make changes that you need to make to it? Yeah, exactly. So it happens all the time. People will also ask for things that they're used to,
Mhm.
and they'll say, if you're doing work at this company, we had to fill this form out, or we have to request it with this way. What was the reason for that? Can we still make that request a different way? Can we get to done doing it a different way? Or are you saying we actually absolutely have to use this tool, have to use this template?
Why do we have to use this
Exactly.
template? What will that do for us? And another kind of false reason I hear is consistency. That's the most important thing in this company is consistency in a tool that helps us deliver more value to our customers. That's why we're in business. Well, no, but so once you really start listening as a Scrum Master, you're able to ask a lot of those questions, which is your job to get to root cause and help the organization. So the final tip we have for you is being a master translator. People have heard you and I say it 1,001 times.
Here comes 1,002.
So what's one more?
Yeah.
Stop throwing up all the jargon. Stop throwing up the scrummy language.
Yeah.
Just stop it. You've got to be able to do the translation. This literally just happened yesterday. I was talking to one of our graduates, and no disrespect to them, they're newer, but they were going on and on about sprint review getting misused, right? Throwing up all the jargon. Stakeholders don't want to come to the sprint review, and when they do, the developers don't want to be there anymore because they're going around and saying what they did during the sprint, and then the product owner asks for acceptance, and the stakeholders don't accept it, so then the team is upset, and I'm like, whoa. I didn't hear anything resembling a sprint review. Did you hear anything, Christian, resembling a sprint review?
Yeah, I got confused when you started to run through that. What are we talking about here? Because it sounds like a mashing of a few things that I would associate to that.
But it's not a sprint review.
Oh,
Sprint review is show and tell. Sprint review is somebody, we can pick who, doesn't have to be the whole team. It can be a volunteer from the team, just somebody showing the real working product increment that came out of the sprint. And it is not acceptance. Product owner would have had to accept they could have even shipped. They could have even released prior to sprint review. Because if they didn't already give the developers on the Scrum team feedback, they have no ability to adapt. So again, no Scrum Master in that situation enacting empiricism. And the review is all about getting input for what to do next.
right.
So it really is kind of executive status.
Yeah.
I don't even care if you call it project status.
Yeah, you don't have to even call it a sprint review if your stakeholders aren't coming. You
No.
could say status, project status. You could say, like you said, executive review. It's connecting dots. It's being able to communicate, and jargon it can cause far more confusion and assumptions because you'll use jargon thinking everybody understands what those jargon things are, and they don't. They have different experiences from different places, and they might have used that jargon back at their old place, and it meant a totally different thing.
So a talented Scrum Master understands Scrum isn't something we're just trying to do for the sake of doing it. Scrum isn't something we do in addition to the work we do around here. No, it becomes the way we do work. So take Christian's suggestion, don't even call it sprint review on a calendar.
No.
Call it executive steering update. Call it product status, project status. Don't really care. But you don't need a duplicate meeting to do those things when you use sprint review as intended. And Scrum Masters who are falling into the trap of blaming everybody else miss all these things. So let's just recap. Start being helpful. Stop judging and blaming, right? Listen, really listen, actively listen with your eyes and ears, and be a master translator. And if you want more on this topic or how to just do better Scrum, that is the reason we recorded all this. We recorded all of it in an on-demand series of videos. And we know, we've heard from people, right? Times are tough.
Yep.
Cash is short, money is short. So we did a price reduction on the on-demand learning series on how to do better Scrum. There's some advanced topics coming out in the next couple weeks, and then we'll give them even more advanced topics, and we can put down in the show notes or the comments how people can find that. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye, Christian, on the can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you?
I would just say you're trying to make sure you have the right conversations with the right people at the right frequency so that we are learning and adjusting and adapting to making sure we're getting what we're hoping to get done.
Is that a wrap?
Wrap.
Okay.
Nice. Nailed it.
God, he gave me the fist.
Woo! Hey.